What's up, people? I'm Shaggy the Opinionated Hippie, and this is part three of me ranking and reviewing, or just ranking, Frank Zappa's guitar solos from the Halloween '81 box set. I'm doing it show by show, so this is the third of the three shows, the November 1st show. I do have this theory or this idea or my opinion that this run of shows, which is almost directly in the middle of the tour, is like literally the turning point where we go from good to sometimes great to sometimes perfect. Where, like, September and October had great moments, and then November and December are great with some perfect moments. And I think the solos in this kind of play that out. I think there's four pretty epic solos in here that, while they aren't perfect, they definitely point in the direction of like where Frank would be going in '81 and '82, and they're pretty interesting. A lot of solos in this final show, 14. So I'm just going to talk about these 14. I'll put the list up on the screen when I'm done, go from my least favorite to favorite. Then I will follow up with another video just to keep it shorter, in which I just rank all, like 30, I think it's 32 solos. I'll do that on a separate ranking. Probably not go into in-depth, but just run through the list quickly. And then I'll rank the show according to the other, like, 67 that I've done, I believe. So anyways, number 14, Stevie Spanking. Essentially a Steve Vai solo. Frank comes in, they trade off, they trade licks. It's fun. Their symmetry is really cool. There's a really nice part of this where they're very, very in sync, like Allman Brothers-esque, kind of dual guitar lead type stuff. Does not sound pre-written, but it sounds completely like, hey, we're on the same page. This is absolutely beautiful. A lot of the times when Frank comes in solos with Vai, they generally work on opposite ends of the fretboard, and then they'll like pass each other as they make these runs and then stay on the opposite ends of the fretboard. That balance is really well executed. Here, they seem like they're really more in sync for a good portion of it. So it's interesting, but it's not ultimately a Frank solo. It's a Frank dual solo. But yeah, probably should rank it higher than... I'm already second guessing these rankings, because next on the list I have NBiz, short, intense, bluesy, not much to it. It is more of a standalone solo, but I almost think maybe when I post the list, I might switch the order. I do like the fact that those runs within Stevie Spanking, where they're like in unison, are pretty cool. So yeah, I'm already changing my mind as I'm going through this. This is a live list, people. This is hot. Number 12 would be Sinister Footwear 2. Frank is soloing over that keyboard vamp that precedes the weird keyboard vamp before the drop on the studio version, the MRS version. It's definitely more of this like cascading wave type energy. I don't think it's the best vamp for his solos. He had previously played this on this run. I think this one is a little more focused. He feels like he has a little more purpose, like he's getting the vibe of the vamp a little more than I think he did in the previous one from the Halloween show. Much more interesting than that one, I think. Still one of the weaker solos from the show, because this show is packed with ridiculous solos. But it's pretty interesting to hear Frank soloing over something that he, by the end of this tour would not be soloing over. And so it's kind of neat from that perspective, from a sort of completist's perspective, to hear Frank, exploring a different vamp and a different energy. Something about it for me just doesn't click. And I think the solo is more like, coming from a hardcore fan perspective, like interesting than it is like, oh my gosh, that's a fantastic solo. That's number 12. Number 11 is Whipping Post. Kind of very slow, very dramatic start. This is a clean vamp. We're not going into any like da-da-da-da type things. This one kind of has an off vibe. Like, I think what a lot of these solos is Frank is really almost purposefully antagonistic toward the rhythm section, like forcing them to respond, and usually they do fantastically, and the results are amazing. This one has that sort of weird, kind of aggressive vibe to it, but it doesn't feel like it necessarily clicks and like takes off. it is still a fantastic solo. Like, I'm comparing greatness to perfection in these 14 solos. But it just falls to number 11 because I do think, like, for all the aggression and for the sort of antagonistic, slightly weird energy that Frank is bringing to Whipping Post, it just never becomes greater than like the sum of its parts, as some of these ones further down the list I think clearly do. Number 10 is the second Drowning Witch solo. This one, we have a lot of examples of this being previously released, and these tend to be sometimes gentler solos than the first one. That's not the case with this one. Frank enters pretty loud, pretty forceful, pretty determined in what he's going to do. Got a lot of great ideas. Eventually kind of chills out after a while and kind of drops down to a slightly sort of like chiller vibe. But for all of Frank's ideas and for everything that Frank's kind of bring into it early on with this sort of more like purposeful attack, the rhythm section is still pretty like grounded to the vamp. They're kind of like staying pretty focused. And so Frank almost feels like he's just like out here while everybody else is just kind of down here, keeping the that rhythm like steady and solid and reliable. Another one where it's just like Frank's playing with a lot of energy and a lot of ideas and like really aggressive in a lot of these solos. And I think sometimes maybe according to the song, the rhythm section has a little more free reign to go way out there. And sometimes they're maybe told to like stay closer to the main vamp. This is one of those where they stay closer to the main vamp and they just kind of keep it solid, keep it steady. Still great solo. Again, I think all of these are fantastic. But for this show, number 10. Number 9, What's New in Baltimore. Soon as we're into the solo, Frank's in. He's working with the same ideas that he works with on the official studio release of this. He's got those really passionate held notes. He's been in those notes that kind of... This one's a little slower pace maybe than I think the one at the Halloween show. But he lets that energy kind of build over the course of the run. We get those sort of beautiful, uplifting, almost like what feel like patriotic What's New in Baltimore notes, but you know there's some sarcasm in there or some irony or some undercutting the actual, the tone, or maybe not. Maybe Frank's actually feeling patriotic for once. It's beautiful, it's intense, it's fun. Still a really, really strong solo, but this is a solo that in a matter of 2 or 3 weeks would just like take it up a whole nother level, maybe 2 levels. We're still kind of figuring out exactly how to get it to that like level, but it's still a pretty strong solo. Number 8 is Alien Orifice. This never fails to disappoint. Love the vamp, love the changes. A little more cautious than maybe the one from the previous show or the Halloween show, the previous night. Wackerman and Thunis are monsters in this. This is still, they bring this vamp and this rhythm hard. Like it is just like forceful, throwing themselves down. And Frank's still like dodging it and working around what they're throwing. Gets really screaming at the end at times. Then he gets more controlled, kind of all over the place. I mean, the ending is just absolute fire on this. But yeah, it's a great, great Alien Orifice. I don't think it's as good as the one. I think the ending is a little more chaotic than the one from the previous night. But I think overall, the one from the previous night maybe just hits a little bit harder and it's a little more effective from the get-go than this one. Which is why I'm not doing a complete ranking of all 3 shows yet, because I'm still some of these, I'm like, they're so closely, tightly ranked that I want to make sure, for my own sake, I get the final ranking correct. Number 7 is Easy Meat. Frank enters a little bit calmer than normal than I think from the previous night. We get those typical just bursts of like manic energy. This one also maybe feels a little more focused and a little more grounded than the Halloween one. Still gets weird. Wackerman's on a very almost like rolling thunder type drum vibe for a good percentage of it, which is different from the more spatial, open, kind of chaotic laser beam shooting across the field at all points in time type energy of a normal Easy Meat. Definitely gets weird towards the end, as sort of all Easy Meats do, and the energy gets crazier, and you know, we lose that sort of more confined drum rhythm and the drum idea that Wackerman kind of lays into for a good portion of this. So it has a kind of a different feel than other Easy Meets, but it's still pretty good. A little more patient, a little more controlled, but fantastic. Easy Meet solos from 81 and 82 are just ridiculous. Number 6 is Dumb All Over. I think this is much better than the Halloween one. It's longer. Frank seems to come in immediately with an idea, with a purpose, with a focus. It's a very reined in but intense solo. Very in the pocket the entire time. And when he gets funky or when he gets weird, sort of in the middle of the solo, like it just kind of stands out a little more because he hit the groove so hard in the beginning and wrote it so well. A lot of ideas. There's a lot of Frank solos when I hear them like that. I like Carolina Hardcore Ecstasy from stage 4, The Evil Prince from stage 4, Certain Torture Never Stops, which I've listened to so many times that it almost feels like there are pockets of like 30-second soloing that feel written or planned or like just so perfectly conceived that they just need to be like withdrawn and memorized and played every time that way. This is the Dumb All Over, which has so many of those ideas where I'm like, wow, did he plan this? Did he think of this? It's just fits so perfectly. Just absolutely fantastic. Just a great, great Dumb All Over. But it's about a minute longer than the one from the Halloween show. Just really, really good energy on this. The top 5, we have The Drowning Witch, number 1. Direct, very purposeful. Rhythm section, as always, is just absolutely insane. We get to the middle sort of the solo, or after we establish sort of the more like focused energy, Frank does kind of slow it down a little, reel it back. And then he decides after he does that, he's just going to keep getting weird. Then he just keeps getting funkier. Then he starts getting in the groove. And it's just, yeah, I mean, it's what Frank does so well in 81. And what he does so well in so many of these solos. Establishes a motif, deviates from that and gets weird and funky, kind of takes that funky energy and like pinpoints it back into a single direction, and then everything just kind of builds and gets more intense. And as he kind of gets more focused towards the end, the rhythm section gets crazier, so then he gets crazier, but still the momentum is forward. This is one of those solos that's just absolutely amazing. But I think it's the next 4 solos, the top 4 solos, which would support my case that this show is pointing towards the awesomeness of November and December, more so than the first 2. We get The Torture Never Stops. Right away, Frank is just off. He is running immediately. It is a relentless attack. Tunis and Wackerman are seriously messing with the groove. Like, they're not laying into that steady, just that thump of like what Bozio and O'Hearn bring to A Torture Never Stops. Like that just relentless sort of Chinese water torture type, just like that goes on in like 77 and 78. Like Tunis and Wackerman want no part of that. This very much has the energy of like last solo of the run or of the night. I'm going to leave it all behind. I'm not ready to be done. I'm just going to keep playing and playing. And if I have an idea, no matter where it falls, like even if it's over here in left field and I've been playing in right field all the time, we're all the way over there. We're just going to entertain this idea. The rhythm section follows, gets kind of nasty at the end. We get some chugging aggressive energy. It flirts with like sort of a Black Page number 2 from stage 5 type, just chaos energy. I mean, it's just absolutely just an awesome Torture Never Stops. I prefer the 77 and 78 sort of relentless Bozio or Hearn pounding away, like chipping away at the rock until it just like, and Frank just completely rides that energy. That slow build to sort of the craziness of this, but I cannot deny the absolute awesomeness of this solo. And it's only number 4. Number 3 is the opening one, Zoodalures. Zoodalures, when we enter the solo section, it really feels like we're just floating in the air or in the water. Like it has this bobbing sound. This chair is squeaking a lot today. It has this like bobbing, jumping in slow motion on a trampoline type feel. Like Frank's not going in slow motion, but the whole rhythm section is just kind of like, it just feels really, really good. Feels like there's a buoyancy to this. Tunis is amazing. has an almost Charlena bounce from like Winos Don't March from like, you know, an 82 that, or I think 84, that groove that you just ride, that kind of vibe. While at the same time, there's a feel of freedom in here. It's kind of celebratory, but not like party atmosphere, but just the energy of this Zootaloris is just, I don't know, it's uplifting, it's comfortable, it's relaxing, and Frank is just dropping an absolutely intense guitar solo amidst this sort of rhythmic sort of just cushion that is provided. And Frank is just playing beautifully and just hitting all the right notes and all the right runs, and it has a Zootaloris kind of calm lack of boundariesness, while at the same time the rhythm section is providing a completely different vibe. It's an awesome pairing. It just, one of the ones that shows off how awesome this rhythm section is clicked in at this point in their career, which is like 6-7 weeks of live touring into it. Number 2 is the Black Page number 2. And this almost made number 1, except the transition back into the song after the solo. There's like 5-6 seconds of like nothing, you know, we don't hit that transition that hard. The end, it kind of falls apart where like Frank's just like stops playing. It's like, oh wait, oh, we're done? Okay, yeah, let's go back into the song. And I think that hurts a little bit. I had to penalize it for that. And also the beginning of the song, I don't think utilizes the momentum of the actual composition as well as the performance from the previous show does. Like it takes a little while to like, it's almost like we have to regather the momentum, which is one thing that I don't like about a lot of 84 and 88 solos, is that sort of new vamp once the song proper ends. But then it doesn't matter because once Frank gets playing, he starts off really sparse at first, a lot of space between his notes, and then he sort of just kind of gathers up speed. We get to this point where like that Them or Us dun vamp is coming in, but then so is that really awesome swing groove that they really delved into on the from the Halloween show. And there really seems to be a tension in the rhythm section between whether we devote ourselves to the swing or we devote ourselves to this like Them or Us more stark, like, you know, hit these dun those kind of beats. And that tension between the two, Frank exploits to the best way possible and kind of just solos back and forth between those ideas while the rhythm section's fighting with those ideas. But it's really, really cool. And when they finally do commit to the swing aspect of it, then it becomes kind of chaotic. It almost becomes abrasive, like Frank is purposefully trying to just antagonize everybody. And it's just absolutely amazing. Frank's making all kinds of weird noises, just using the guitar to just make it scream and squeal and tweak and just do crazy things. Like the second half is just absolute minutes and minutes of just guitar rhythmic insanity. And then we reach what should be the peak, but then it just kind of dies and we kind of limp into the rest of the song. If we did not limp into the rest of the song, this would probably be number 1. But because we did limp into the rest of the song, number 1 is Pound for a Brown on the Bus. Frank starts off by very slowly quoting Pound for a Brown. And then after he does that, he just like takes off. It's really groovy. It's upbeat. It's high energy. It's just all over the place. It's fun. It's crazy. It's weird. It's indescribable at times. I think Tunis starts almost like a walking bass line at the end, and things start to maybe swing a little bit like the Black Pages do from this run. And then this goes on for minutes and minutes, and then right towards the end, Frank starts quoting Staying Alive on his guitar, and the band's right there with him. And so we get some weird Staying Alive, not quite disco, but fully like Frank playing electric guitar, Staying Alive quotation. And it's pretty cool. It almost reminds me of like Fish, a band who drops in musical quotes quite often into their solos. The whole band doesn't quite commit to like dropping into a serious disco groove as Fish would probably do. But it's neat to hear Frank like dropping in quotes of like not his own songs. And so that's kind of fun. And I really like that. And it's just a fun, aggressive, all over the place, eclectic, idiosyncratic, just bizarre, endearing, starts slow, ends with a quote, crazy in the middle. I think it's just your perfect example of a weird Frank Zappa guitar solo that is also aggressive and works and moves this show forward and just, yeah, pound for pound, just absolutely, absolutely amazing. But yeah, that's what they look like. I knew it would take me a long time to talk about these, so I'm glad I only decided to do this for this video. That's what I would think. I didn't change my list, but at the bottom, I might switch that Stevie Spankings and that NBiz. Maybe switch those. Everything else, I think I'm pretty comfortable with and pretty confident about. But yeah, that's all I got. Let me know what you think about this show, about these solos, and I'll drop a shorter video in a couple days in which I rank all of them, don't talk as much about them, and then I will show you where this release ranks among all the others that I've done so far, which I believe this is 68C, right? So it would be among the other 67 that I've done. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, share, comment, do all those things. And yeah, go listen to Frank Zappa Halloween. Go listen to this final show. It's amazing. The guitar playing, out of this world. Frank is a genius. That's all I got. Peace. Talk to you later.